Hey guys, another good video for you today. Let's talk about all the crazy current events that's happening in our world. Are you worried about raids on your home? Are you worried about the IRS enforcement? Are you worried about the extra taxation in this bill? Are you worried about all this climate change that's gonna maybe put us back into a quote-unquote emergency? Should this stuff bother you? And if so, what can we do about it? The video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Today's gonna be a good video. It's a beautiful morning here. You see the fog. We're having rains like crazy, which is good for the grasses going into the fall season because our animals are eating without us having to pay for a lick of it. So it is really good for us here. If you're new to the channel, please go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, because you need to know what's happening here on the farm all the time. And I'm enjoying these discussions with you as we try to prep and survive and homestead our way through weird situation of world that we're going through right now. So today's video is going to be on some of the topics that we've seen over the last week. It's going to be on the current events that should be a sobering thought to us to say, you know, or should we be worried? As American citizens who love freedom, is there a worry that we are supposed to have? Or are we just saying, you know, hey, we've done nothing wrong, they're not bothering us in a very narcissistic way. Hey, I don't have anything to worry about. They live their life, I live my life, and hopefully nothing will happen. Well, that could be a detriment to you, because ultimately everything that's happening, because we're in a global society, because we're so impacted by all the things that are happening in our world, I think you have to put your eyes on it, gain wisdom from it, and hopefully be proactive against some of the things that's coming down the line. So let's talk about first the elephant in the room, as they say. Let's talk about the raids that happened on the former president. No matter if he was in the wrong or right, it may have been done in a very enforced way that has got some bias against it. So let's look at that. Us as freedom-loving individuals, and us who believe in liberty and have a libertarian view, again, very conservative libertarian view from me personally, it seems like everything's working against the way that I view things from this world's perspective. So should I or other people like us be worried that we may see a little bit more persecution coming up? Now, in the spiritual sense, and as a Christian, I do believe we're going to see more persecution coming. However, let's take the spiritual sense out of it, which I don't believe you can. But just for instance, if you're not talking spiritually, the freedom-loving folks, the people who love their firearms, the people who love just being able to raise their own food and have a little bit more of a libertarian spin or a conservative spin on things, you may be just as persecuted as well. And that being said, the scary thing is not only are you maybe going to be persecuted as well, who's going to be on your side? It seems like every time we have a situation or a dust up and there's some big conservative name or some big person with a big personality who may not be doing wrong, they become ostracized in the news. The media is so far against what's going on, and they actually are covering up a lot of things that they probably shouldn't be covering up. So that being said, what do we do? What do we do to balance that? What do we do to be proactive against that? One thing you can't do is you can't keep being dumb, and you can't keep electing the same people who's been in Washington and saying they're going to change the world. That's a farce. They've not changed it since. They're not going to change it now. So the only way that you can do something about it is you got to get rid of the people that's in Congress who keep saying they're going to do something about changing. They're not. And for one thing, you need to get away from everybody in there as a career politician. It's got to come back to people who do their own business, who are normal folks who are going to go up there and they can change the world because they see it. They live in the real world. If those people are not living in the real world, we have the oldest and most tenured Congress we've ever had. Think about that for a second. That means most of the people up there are older, elitists, and they've been there for longer tenures than any other time in history. Republican and Democrat. I'm not saying one side or the other. I'm saying let's get some new fresh faces up there so we can really change and have things implemented and changed for us. But guess what? They're not going to change it either unless they're really, truly ready to change it. You have to have enough people who are not just 4 or 5 people in Congress trying to change the world, because they're not going to do it. If you don't set up term limits and you don't take lobbying away from some of these congressmen and some of the money that's flowing under the table to them, everyone that goes up there in an honest way is going to end up being a crook and a tenured elitist just like the rest of them. So make sure you're being wise in your decisions on who you are voting for when you go to vote in November or when you vote for the presidency in 2 years. They're not going to change the world. You're going to change the world, and you've got to make sure that your wisdom and your thoughts and your proactivity is helping influence who's going to Washington. Because ultimately, if we're not focused, we're just listening to what's been said on the media and on the television, and all we're doing is we're just voting the same way, thinking that something else is going to happen. Insanity truly is an old cliche, but insanity truly is keep doing the same thing and thinking a different reaction is going to come out of it. It's not. If we keep electing the same folks, we keep doing the same thing, we're never going to get any better. It's just going to keep going on this steady decrease and decline that shouldn't be happening in the first place. So now, are we protected from the raids and things like that? Not necessarily. You're going to see more regulation, you're going to see more bureaucracy, just like this bill that they passed. And don't trust if there's an R or D behind their name. We need to understand that we're voting for the person and making sure the person is fighting for us. Again, they can't do it on their own. When someone comes in and says he is going to change the world, he can't change the world. Or she is going to change the world, he can't change the world. It's an effort that people have got to go in together. So we have to have people working together, and there needs to be wisdom gained by the people who are voting to put these people in power. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, the government's too far gone, there's no saving it. It very well could be. And so at that point, you need to find a firebrand in there who's going to dismantle some of these problems that we're having. And that may be a let's reshuffle the deck and start all over. Can that happen? Who knows? But I'm willing to vote for somebody who's willing to say that they're going to try to do that. So now for the second part of this video, we have this bill that just passed that they are clouding as, you know, this wonderful Inflation Reduction Act. When we rename something, it doesn't change the policy of what they're trying to pass. Look and research and have wisdom on what is going on. When they change the name of something, it doesn't mean they change the policy. So all you've got is the Green New Deal and the Build Back Better deal in this package. It's a $740 billion package. I love the fact that we're printing money to quote unquote Inflation Reduction Act. So we're printing money to cover a new bill that's called Inflation Reduction Act. The more you print money, the more inflation takes place, because there's not enough goods to spend all the money on in this fiat currency that we're on. So $740 billion, and then half of it, almost half of it, is for this green initiatives. Now, am I for, I mean, look, I love nature. I love the beautiful grass. I love the fact that I can use solar, I can use wind, or I can use water to make energy. I love that. However, don't be so stupid and remiss to think that just because they're passing this Green New Deal, or they're passing this Build Back Better, or they're passing whatever they want to call it now, this climate emergency, that it's going to benefit our world or benefit us. It's not. It's going to benefit them. It's all a money grab, guys. Pay attention to what you're doing. Look at the global elites, not just in America. All this bill does is puts us more on a global chain and a global supply chain and a global market, instead of us taking care of ourselves here in America. So do we have American sovereignty? Well, when we pass bills like this, there's not a lot of American sovereignty there. We need to understand what they're passing. So am I for a greener world? Absolutely. We want to see regenerative farming. We want to see organic practices. I don't use synthetic fertilizer, so those kind of things don't affect me. However, you can't shut the world off from it right now, because so much of the world depends on the food that is being conventionally raised. Because guess what? We quit raising our own food. There's not a lot of people that go out there and have gardens and go milk a cow at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not saying everybody's supposed to do that. What I am saying is, because there's not a lot of people doing that, if you take conventional food out and you say we're going fully organic, no fertilization, all regenerative, we're going to grow cover crops, you will have a major food issue, which would ultimately allow us to say, well, we can grow food in the lab, which is all GMO. So do you know what I'm saying? Lab grown meat is not natural. How's that better for the climate? Because guess what? They're going to be using a lot more chemicals too to grow that lab grown meat. It's not the fact that you can go out here and catch a fish or you know, let something graze on here and process it. That's not hurting the agriculture. That's not hurting the green climate. That's more nature. That's what we've been doing for what, 3,500 years, 4,000 years here on this earth. It's not all of a sudden going to go away, and that the government can all of a sudden fix it and we're going to start growing stuff in a lab. Pay attention to what's going on. Do I love solar? Do I love the fact that we want to feed America? Yes, but they're using our money to fund their pockets. to pass things that really have no bearing on making sure this is a cleaner earth. It's all an elitist mentality of you've got certain people buying certain things that's going to monopolize the food, it's going to monopolize the markets to where they're in power and you're not. Pay attention to what's being passed. The last point I'll talk about in this video is taxes. I cannot stand taxes. I cannot stand them. I believe in a flat tax, 10% for the majority of Americans, and we'll look at some other options as you get higher than that. I understand that. I have no problem with paying a tax if it is going to the right things. But our government is so regulated and so involved in our lives that we are taxed to a point of no return. If we're taxed on our income, federal, state, and local, then we're taxed on buying everything that we do. We're taxed on our gas, we're taxed on our house, we're taxed on our land yearly, we're taxed on our tags, we're taxed on the licensures that we pull to hunt, fish, and whatever. So if somebody's willing to run for office and say, I'm willing to dismantle that or try, I think you should give them a shot. Because ultimately, if we don't, the America that we know is gonna implode because we are taxing our people out of their own funds and we're relining people's pockets, already ruling this world that we live in. So it brings me to the point. In this bill, 87,000 new IRS agents. A lot of those are going to be enforcement agents. Now, I know everybody's talked about that, but let's think about it this way. If you look at where the audits took place, the whole point of this is to, make sure the 700 billionaires. So yes, do you need to watch over them and make sure they're doing right? Sure. 87,000 people to do that, actually doubling what they already had. So now our IRS is very close to how many National Guard we have that's guarding America. If I'm not mistaken, we just doubled our IRS, and also bigger than the FBI and some of those other organizations that's supposed to keep us safe, which I don't know if they are, but that's a whole nother video in itself. But why do we need so many people watching over our money? If we make our money, why is it so important for the government to take our money? Because they pass bills like the $740 billion bill. If you look at the last audits of the last few years, over half of the audits were not looking at billionaires and uber millionaires. They were people who made under 75,000 or people who made under 150,000. Look it up. So are they coming for the billionaires? Are they coming for the uber millionaires? Are they coming for the world elitists? No, sir. They're coming for you because they know you can't defend yourself. So be wary, be mindful, be wise, and look more than what you're seeing on the news. Now, I know a lot of you guys who watch us, y'all believe like us, and so you are looking for other ways to find new sources. It's hard, I will tell you, it's very hard, but make sure you're doing all you can to have hope, to know that we can change the world, but it's going to come at some persecution and convictions to us. Spiritually speaking, but also physically speaking, people don't like us anymore. So keep speaking out, keep living for Jesus first of all, and ultimately living for your freedom and liberty that you can have in your life. We need America to be the America that it used to be, the city on a hill, the shining light, the one that is devoted to Judeo-Christian values. We've lost all that. It's time to go back. It's time for true repentance. Time to gain wisdom. Share these videos, share your thoughts, and make sure you are telling people to look past what the news is showing. And ultimately, be safe out there. God bless. Happy homesteading, y'all.